Welcome back to Hard4Games, everybody. I'm your host, Tony, and today we're taking a look at Dark Hyrule Fantasy. It is a gothic horror take on Ocarina of Time. Let's get started. So produced by E-Gor and co-produced by Spire, this mod is really something else entirely, especially compared to what we normally cover. Often on the channel we'll feature projects that focus on beta elements or remodeling Link, like Skylar's Twilight Princess mod, where he basically took Link in Ocarina of Time and redid him to look like the Twilight Princess Link. But here everything is reskinned, recolored, and has a totally refocused energy. It's dark, it's dank, it's creepy, and frankly, I think I'm in love with the art style. So E-Gor had contacted me quite some time ago to show off some initial screenshots, and I was instantly interested because it looked a lot different, like I said, than the other mods that we had covered so far on the channel. The aesthetic was just much further removed from Ocarina than anything I had seen. So I waited for a demo, and waited, and waited, and waited, and a couple years later he finally contacted me and said, "It's ready." So that's what we're going to be showing off today. That's what I'm reviewing. It is the demo. Keep in mind, because it's a demo, it's somewhat short, and of course there will be some visual spoilers here. The first thing I want to talk about here are the graphics and atmosphere. The game starts you immediately in a bar. Now E-Gor tells me that this will be a sort of an informational hub where Link, or whoever this is supposed to be, whatever version of Link this is supposed to be, will go to get missions from townsfolk. So basically a bar being a social hub, Link will go in there, get missions, and then go on his way. So that's kind of like his home base. Now I like this because it's not very Zelda. Normally you're starting in a forest or a house or something a bit tamer. You know, in most Zelda games, it starts off with Link just sleeping. But here, he's not sleeping, he's drinking. And the village is sort of an extension of this. It's very sad, it's cold, it's desolate, the statue at the center of town is broken. Everything is pretty depressing, except for this sort of brothel-y residence. Now, E-Gor tells me that this is supposed to have sort of a Playboy house feel, but I know better. I think it's just a brothel. But anyways, it's so cold looking that every time you go into a house and there's like a fireplace, you really can sort of feel the warmth as that fire fills up the room a little bit, because everything around it is just so uncomfortable. Aside from this, there are also little bits here and there that begin to explain a larger story. Some people talk about a kidnapping that occurred in the town, and you can also find an old diary that gives little hints of what's to come. So there are two other main areas here. After the village, we go to Candlelight Woods. And this is where we get our first glimpses of color. Deep purples, blues, and oranges contrast the whites and grays. In the main dungeon, Nightshade Manor, adds to this with vibrant pinks and magentas. And in the dungeon, these colors are often featured on geometrically tiled floors. And these floors have sort of a 3D cube effect if you look at them in the right way, or the wrong way, depending on how you think of it. And it kind of messes with your eyes a little bit, which adds to how eerie the whole situation is. And as you've probably noticed, Navi's wings are bat wings, and Link is something else entirely. Other than his base model, everything is different down to the sword, which is now curved to be more akin to a saber. The same treatment was given to enemies, which are now horrifying versions of their Ocarina of Time counterparts. Now again, I don't really know what the story is going to be yet, aside from little hints here and there, so really what I'm reviewing this on is the presentation and gameplay, and frankly, the presentation alone makes it worth checking out. Now that brings us to gameplay. Now, it's still Ocarina of Time, but it's always interesting to see how in different mods the creators have their own take on or even own exploits to the Ocarina formula. So for example, and these are kind of gameplay spoilers, but how the hell do I jump over this broken fence? Or in this situation where I'm basically on a tightrope, I'm on a balance beam, and it's filled with enemies. And there are also some instances of serious trickery. I was in this room wondering what to do next. I had fulfilled the torch puzzle, which was pretty easy, but it only opened one of two barred doors, and I scoured the area over and over again to figure out what I was missing, until finally I saw it. A switch canted to its side and covered with bushes. So it was like literally hidden. So it was just one of those things where it's like, normally, from what I remember in Ocarina, those switches aren't that hidden. Like, you may have to look for them a little bit, but they're not like purposefully covered with shrubbery. So I don't want to give away too much, but basically the gameplay and the puzzles are pretty solid. They aren't as strong as the visuals, but they'll keep you entertained, and there's certainly enough strangeness going on in this dungeon to keep you occupied. And like I said, the demo is 3 main areas. I probably got like an hour and a half of gameplay out of it. One neat thing about this mod is that it's also console compatible, so I want to showcase a little bit of footage from the N64. This is RGB out and line quadrupled via my OSSC. One interesting thing that happened that didn't happen on emulator was that it started me off with way more hearts and way more equipment, and I got to see some things that are in store for the future. I don't know if just my flash cart was accessing like a save file that it utilized. I don't know what happened, but basically we get to see some future designs for more shields, tunics, and swords. One thing I will say though is that on emulator, the main village, it's kind of dark and damp and snowy. On console, it is almost too hard to see what's happening. Candlelight Woods is your first instance where you can kind of figure out what's going on, but I had to turn my TV brightness way up. So I don't know what was going on there, but on actual console, at least for me, it was just way too dark in the beginning in the village. So this mod gets a strong recommend from me. It was fun, the aesthetic, like I said, I fell in love with it, and there's enough hints of a story here that I think there could be some potential for like a fully fleshed out world, which I'm pretty excited for. I just hope that the next demo doesn't take another year or 2 to drop, because, I mean, I want it to be good and polished and all those things, but I've already waited so long. So please, maybe like 6 months or so, give me a little something to play with. So I want to thank Eric, aka E-Gor, for letting me play this, and of course keeping me in touch with the project. If you want to play it yourselves, I will have a link in the description below that will send you on your journey, so to speak. So thank you all for watching, appreciate it. Thank you all to our patrons on patreon.com for helping keep the show running, and again, we'll see y'all next time.